Chanelle Delgado is the Youth Services Administrative Program Manager for Santa Fe County. She holds a master's degree in clinical social work from Highlands University, as well as has a prevention specialist certification granted by the state. Chanelle is currently working toward her independent license in clinical social work, and in her spare time is a crisis therapist at the local crisis triage center, La Sala. She currently oversees the Youth Services Division for the Community Services Department of the county, which includes the DWI program, Teen Court program, and youth services. And Chanelle serves on a number of different local and statewide boards. We're very grateful for Chanelle speaking to us tonight. She's got a PowerPoint presentation, and we do ask that we encourage questions, but we do ask that you hold your questions or go ahead and write them in the chat. And then we'll get to your questions after Chanelle has completed her presentation. So with that, Chanelle, take it away, and thanks again for presenting to us tonight.
Thank you, Craig. And, I'm really grateful to be able to be here tonight and present to you all the great work that's happening in Santa Fe County that I get to be part of. I'm born and raised in Santa Fe. So my roots are here and I'm invested here in my community. And so I appreciate the work that NAMI is doing. And I also appreciate learning about where NAMI envisions their services amongst youth and families in our community. And I'm happy to be part of that conversation. So this is an FY24 snapshot. This is this year's. I say that just as a disclosure because as we move forward, our community is changing rapidly. And so I want to be able to adjust our lenses as appropriate to the needs that are coming up for our youth and families in our community. So this is what we're doing this year. What we do next year may be something a little bit different. And I'm hoping to give you an overall view of what youth services is. Youth Services was created in 2021, formally acknowledged from the Santa Fe County Board of County Commissioners. And since then, it's been just like nonstop train. And so I'm super excited to show you what we're doing and where we plan to go in the future. All right, so just a quick note, under my oversight, I have the DWI program, which Craig mentioned. All of the components that I oversee do have youth components. So the DWI program is highly focused on adolescent prevention to substance use and alcohol misuse, specifically in Santa Fe County. We have 3 dedicated prevention specialist positions that are dedicated to school-based prevention throughout the county from Edgewood to Powake and Sombrio. So pretty cool. The Teen Court program has been in existence since 1993. And we serve a pre-adjudicated, a voluntary diversion program for adolescents 12 to 18. And that is a slew of different programs, which I'll get into a little bit later. And then, like I said, we have the formalized youth services, which kind of is separate from the other 2 programs and is becoming its own beast as we move through. So to start off, we have, for some reason, my computer froze. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Oof. I'm going to stop sharing here. We're going to go back a couple of slides. For some reason, it jumped way ahead. All right. So as part of the youth services, we offer grants to the community to respond to different priority areas that the county has deemed high priority based on the number of the data that the county is produced through the YRRS data through the state. We really customize our grants to really meet the needs and the highest level of demand. So for this last grant cycle, our priority funding areas were substance use from, initiation to recovery, the whole span there. And then suicide prevention, including intervention and post-intervention / recovery services. Resilience was another big topic that we wanted to focus on. And then school mental health and school-based prevention efforts were another area of focus. Youth peer support, mentorship programs, another area, and then early identification, including the screening for ACEs. So as I mentioned, any of the applicants could had to apply for one or more of those areas in order to be considered for funding. Our first grantee was the Adelante program, which is ran out of the Santa Fe Public Schools. The Adelante program, for this specific funding through Santa Fe County, asked for a secondary liaison for their project, which really focused on identifying students who are experiencing homelessness or housing instability, and then being able to implement interventions to bridge services for the family and the youth and the student to access resources. So Adelante received a bulk of funding from Santa Fe County to carry out this expansion of their existing work. Next, we had Gerard's House. Gerard's House for Santa Fe County, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with the broad spectrum of grief support services that Gerard's House offers, but for the specific funding from Santa Fe County, we fund their Nuestra Jornada program, which really has a unique lens in which it focuses on grief. So this is grief support due to death, deportation, incarceration, parental abandonment, which I think is super unique in terms of looking at grief services, kidnapping, and then separation by borders. This program serves quite a bit of our youth. They have large amount of referral sources, and someone can self-refer in for this specific program should it be a need for their family. So that's another program we're proud to support here in Santa Fe County. Next is Innovate Educate. Innovate Educate is a really unique program. It focuses on expanding skill-based learning for adolescents, and also, I'll just throw in, we do also support adults that have previous incarceration or have previous offenses such as a DWI. They're also able to participate in this program. But essentially, it really focuses on a mentorship building, a coaching component, and they look at the strengths-based model. So there's assessments that the kid or the adult can complete, and it shows them like what careers would be good paths for their natural skill set. After they do that assessment, there is job placement. So they look at different areas that are open within our community, and they try and connect the individual to the job. They provide a little bit of bridge support during the first few months of that person taking on a job. There is a stipend included for both adolescents and adults if they choose to participate in Innovate Educate. And it is a huge protective factor in terms of having some sort of stable income for, especially for our adult population who's struggling, but also giving our youth population some autonomy. And so we've seen really great success with our Innovate Educate program. We fund the NDI National Dance Institute here in Santa Fe County as well. This focuses on out of school time in particular. So we're looking at times that it's hard for families to find coverage for childcare. And so this program, while also learning a skill such as dance and choreography, it also really focuses on building resilience and strong adult connections within our community. So we also support this program. Next is Resolve. Resolve is also another unique program within our community, and it's really focused on a violence component. Violence looks different throughout our community, but specifically post-pandemic, we saw a lot of bullying, a lot of simple assaults, like on the uprise. We lost our ability to connect with human to human, and we saw a lot of kids specifically really learning how to resolve those things with their hands. And so Resolve was a huge component to bring into our array of services that we offer here. And so they really focus on teaching kids how to navigate self-regulation, their social emotional needs, and then practical ways to prevent violence in their school community or in their community in general. So Resolve is another partner for Santa Fe County and serves that particular niche, like I said, of working through violence. Next, we have the Santa Fe Public Schools Prevention. This is a pretty broad funding. We support their WAVE program, which is a peer-led, student-led prevention through public awareness. So they highlight like gun violence initiatives, they highlight mental health days, they do things across their school site to really engage their school communities on conversations around behavioral health and mental health and violence. A peer-led group, which is really cool. It's at every middle school and every high school. And then we also provide gender support services. So the recent YRS data really highlighted the need for us to be really super involved with our LGBTQ plus community and our kiddos there. The indications and indicators there for risk of suicide, risk of substance use, they're all heightened among that population. And so it's really important for us to have our funding involved in those areas. And so we do provide gender support services through Santa Fe Public Schools. WAVE also is another, they do focus on that area as well. And then another component is the experiential learning component, which we're really trying to build staffing capacity to integrate experiential learning methodology in their teaching practices through the schools.
Mm.
Next, we have the Sky Center. And the Sky Center is all about saving lives, right? So hopelessness, fear, anxiety, suicidal risk, that's all under their umbrella. They hold a contract with Christus as well to really be a referral base for clients, individuals, youth that are going in for behavioral health issues to then get some support through the Sky Center upon their release from the hospital. I like to also say that Sky Center, although their primary purpose is saving lives, that they also work with family systems, which is huge. I think if we're ever going to get to the root of supporting a youth, we have to get to the root of supporting a family. And oftentimes that generational trauma is a contributing factor to where the youth is today. And so I really love that the Sky Center is focused on family systems and really interrupting those patterns and providing some healing opportunities for families in our community. Next, we have the Mountain Center. So the Mountain Center is definitely the leading agency when it comes to therapeutic adventure in northern New Mexico. They provide opportunities for youth to connect to nature and build their capacity to open up and talk through emotional and therapeutic adventure. They have a center out in Suzuki that they take kids to, climbing walls, teaching them how to build trust amongst peers. There's lots of different ways that they incorporate nature to their therapeutic programming. Right now, they're serving approximately 300 youth in Santa Fe County each year, and that includes our Edgewood, Tesuque, and Turquoise Trail areas in Santa Fe. Wiseful, another unique program. This is focused on circus arts. So they learn through physical activity. They learn how to really hone in on their emotional attunement with themselves. And they also too serve trans and non-binary youth as well, which we know is another priority, like I mentioned earlier, for the county to ensure that we're providing a span of resources and services to that community. Wiseful does impact approximately 668 youth here in Santa Fe County, and most of their programming is out of school time, which is a huge help to our families in our community. Youth shelters. So youth shelters is, again, another very important component in our community. We fund specifically for youth shelters a life skills service navigator at the emergency youth shelter. They really work on providing life skills to the clients that are in the youth shelter emergency component. They also provide wraparound services, and it's a really important position, and it was created with this funding. So they didn't have this prior to this funding. So high focus on life skills and wraparound navigation services. All right, so other youth services projects apart from our grants. Our first one here is our violence prevention unit. So in 2022, Santa Fe County and the city of Santa Fe formalized our partnership and collaboration for the Violence Prevention Unit through an MOU. Conversations, however, about this violence prevention component started about 2 years ago when we saw a huge uptick in gun violence amongst our youth in Santa Fe County. We had many conversations with stakeholders, like, how are we going to respond? What would that response look like? However, the conversations never really went anywhere. So the city and county decided to take leadership and create this collaboration. The main components of the violence prevention unit are expanding our violence prevention education to providers, and also ensuring we have safe and free spaces for you to be able to gather. The teen center is a result of that. There's now a free location on the south side of Santa Fe that provides unlimited access for kids to have a safe place to be and things to do. And then also just really, really trying to build like an understanding of what violence looks like in our community. So my counterpart at the city and I have been going on ride-alongs with law enforcement to look at, like, how does it look through a first responders lens when responding to violence? What does this look like? What is missing? What do we need? And the ultimate goal is to hire a provider to evaluate and pilot a program that would recruit, support, educate, and employ youth at high risk for violence. And this would be done through a community support worker model that would then, those youth as they graduate up would become the mentors for the youth coming in. So this violence prevention unit also looks at how do we start promoting and implementing the existing red flag laws, and how do we bring that knowledge to the forefront of our community, and what are we doing there? The Santa Fe County is working with the state right now on how do we publicize red flag laws and how do people access that and complete applications for that. So those are all part of the violence prevention unit that I'm overseeing. It is fairly new. We just got our collaboration end of 2022, and we are starting. All of this is underway right now. We will be looking to hire a selected provider within the next 6 months. Another amazing opportunity for Santa Fe County is our partnership with Christus St. Vincent's. Nationally, there has been a dramatic increase in the number of emergency department visits by children and adolescents seeking mental health support for mental health issues. And the National Pediatric Readiness Project stated that less than half of EDs across the nation are equipped to handle this. That's a big problem, and especially being here in Santa Fe and overseeing the teen court program where we get to meet families face to face, it was often being told to us that they went to the emergency room, but nothing happened after. Like, what do we do? So Santa Fe County, through various conversations with stakeholders in the community, decided that one good pilot and one good use of funds would be to see what if we provided a position at Christus in the emergency room department that was a clinical position that would specifically be dedicated to child and adolescent behavioral health needs. This position is currently open and we're looking to actively fill this position. So if you know of any clinicians looking for a role, this would be an amazing job. You don't have to be independently licensed. You can be a licensed social worker looking towards independent license and get supervision through this position. So we've kind of really tailored this to make it flexible so that we could fill the position because it's such a need. Essentially, this clinical person would be able to determine appropriate levels of care and be able to inform a treatment plan moving forward. It would also be able to provide follow-up care to ensure that all of the client's needs are being met through local agencies. So there would be also that warm handoff, and then, we'd build upon that. So this is currently, like I said, open. Christus has an open position. I'm happy to share that with you, Jessica, to send out to the group after. But if you know anyone, we're actively looking to fill this. I'm super excited about it. Any partnership with our hospital is a good partnership. And so especially around behavioral health needs. We also have our fentanyl public awareness. I'm not sure if you all have seen these. These are two images. Our campaign first launched last year, which is this One Pill Can Kill campaign. This was after a series of overdoses amongst our youth populations in Santa Fe County, and just like the access and level of availability that we were being told, like, and a lot of parents had no clue what it was. So this first phase was really just to introduce what is it about, what can be done, also introducing the fact that Narcan is a tool that can reverse a fentanyl overdose. Phase 2, which was recently deployed end of summer, which we've received a lot of feedback on that I want to address, but never use alone was the message that was selected. And the reason that this has been criticized is because many believe that it enables drug use in our communities by sending the wrong message, right? Kind of encouraging people to use. Yet the majority of people who experience a fatal overdose on fentanyl or other drugs die unnecessarily because they are alone, and likely out of fear and shame and without access to Narcan. So the whole idea was actually the contrary. We ran it through some groups and some focus groups of people that had a history of using, and like the anti-stigma message was something they really valued and appreciated. And so this is what we decided to roll out, these tools to reduce the risk of dying and death. And so for us, it's a big deal. We're working on phase 3 right now, and we're tiering our messages. I do want to just add, it is a multidisciplinary team that is creating these messages. And so it's composed by the state, the county, the city, and then first responders. And then we also have some clinicians on our team too that are providing some feedback, and community members. So it is a message that is a community message, and Santa Fe County just holds it. But it has been interesting to see the controversy that's came up since we've decided to get involved in public awareness around this topic. Next, we have the Teen Court program, and I included the Teen Court program in this because Teen Court has really shifted. I think the initial response when people hear Teen Court is they think punitive, but I would say to replace punitive with restorative. Again, we're looking at clients that are coming through with a large amount of things going on and variables happening in their lives. Oftentimes that includes trauma. Oftentimes when they're sent over for a substance use issue that they're coping with through substance use, a lot of different things happening with them. So instead of the lens of punitive, we've really taken on the lens of restorative justice. And that really includes family systems again. We look at, is mom struggling? Is dad struggling? What can we do to support them and strengthen them? Because we know if we can strengthen them, then we can work on the kid. If we work on the kid without the parents, then it doesn't really work. They go back home and they are having the same issues repeated over and over again. So we've really looked at how we can do both the family and the individual and then bring it together. We offer gender specific programming. So Voices for Girls and Boys Council, which are both evidence-based curriculums. We have expedited counseling services. So if a kid screens positive for suicide, then we are looking at completing an assessment. And if that assessment comes out that like, hey, this isn't appropriate for hospitalization, we're not meeting these criteria, we will have that client seen within 24 hours with our contracted service provider to do a full assessment and screening and get plugged into services. We offer behavioral management services. A variety of restorative justice programming is offered through Teen Court, including a multi-generational model called Breaking Barriers, which I'm super proud of, where we look at the family systems in layers because there's lots of unacknowledged trauma that exists that is contributing to who the kid is now. And so that model is super powerful, and the families come together at the end, and it's a beautiful healing circle of acknowledging like, hey, I haven't been at my best and I didn't even realize it, and I was expecting you to operate under these conditions. And like, it's a really cool way to acknowledge what we have ownership with our children. So really cool program. And then obviously case management, and then a tiered substance use array of programs as well, depending on how clients are coming in and what level of use they're bringing to the program. We see approximately 300 youth a year 300 to 500 is kind of our sweet spot. Some years it's closer to 500, just depending on the trends we're seeing.
Mm.
Projects in the works. So this is the exciting stuff, and you guys are the first audience that are going to get a preview of what's to come. So I'm super excited to be able to share this, and it's a big undertaking, so bear with me. I'm learning with you all. Mobile response and stabilization services. So Santa Fe County will be issuing an RFP to provide mobile response stabilization services for ages 0 to 21. So this is a really targeted intervention, which will allow through 988 someone to dispatch a team, a clinical team, clinical, non-clinical, or a combination of both team to the residence or to wherever location this family is experiencing a crisis. The beauty about this is it's not just a one-time response. So yes, it's a one-time like, hey, what's going on? Let me try and figure out how we could de-escalate and get through this moment. But it's followed up with up to 8 weeks of stabilization services for youth and caregivers. Huge game changer, right? Mobile crisis response is amazing. I've had the opportunity and privilege to do it, and it's great. But the 8 weeks of stabilization services is game changer. This is a statewide initiative, and they will be deploying it in Sandoval County, but Santa Fe County decides that we want to just jump in right away. So we are going to be looking at funding the implementation or the planning and organization of this, and then implementation will come to follow. But we're going to spend 1 year making sure we have all the pieces to do this well. And super excited to see this kind of service come for our kids. Like I said, this is brand new. It's coming out soon on RFP to select a provider to take this and carry it out through. It will be Medicaid sustained after the planning and the whole organizational processing and protocol development, training, community readiness assessments, all of that. This will then be carried out hopefully after a year and will be implemented and sustained by Medicaid. So implemented by the provider, sustained by Medicaid. Next is an adolescent child intensive case manager. So this is another exciting component. We've talked about Christus, we've talked about all these like different stages that we're really getting families ready to start receiving follow-up care. This intensive case manager will be really dedicated to helping a family navigate our complex behavioral health system. What we found from families is oftentimes they're jumping to out of state options, or they're doing all these things to try and like respond to the crisis that's happening, but they're missing all the local opportunities. So this intensive case manager will walk them through, noted with insurance in mind and with all the other barriers that could potentially play a role, and really assess and plan a care plan with them. They'll, if need be, walk them from one agency to another agency and show up with them and help them. And so that support will be super important. This is not technically navigation like how they will have the navigation capacity through Connect and all of those things, but more just intensive management, making sure that families are getting to the places. Self-referral, we'll work with hospitals, we'll work with a whole bunch of people to ensure that we're getting these clients that need really, really intensive care navigated through this behavioral health system that we're building and that we have that exists in Santa Fe County. Next, we have support and programming for caregivers. This will be another priority area for Santa Fe County. We really want to ensure that we are supporting our parents and our caregivers with a variety of with a variety of different supports. And so we will be releasing an RFP and hopefully get a lot of responses in regards to the different types of parenting groups that we're hearing that parents and families really want to be able to talk with each other about what's going on and how to resolve and how to work through. So maybe we'll have some support groups, maybe we'll have some clinical groups. I'm not sure what that will look like quite yet, but we do know for sure that parents and caregivers are really needing a place to also figure out how to support their loved ones who's struggling. So this is an exciting component for us as well, and we're hoping to release an RFP in regards to that. Wow, like I made record time. I'm so excited. So I'm open for any questions. I know that is a lot. I didn't touch on anything DWI related. There's another whole thing there. But I am super excited to hear from you all, and I will stop sharing so I can see your faces.
Great. Thank you so much, Chanelle. Let's see, we got to get our audio. Sounds good. Thanks. Oops, we're getting feedback here for some reason. Hmm. That was my fault. Thanks again, Chanelle. That was quite a comprehensive list of what the county's up to, and more in particular, what you're up to. That's pretty impressive. And thanks for the sneak peek on the new programs to come. If out there in the audience, if you have a question, feel free to raise your real hand or your yellow hand down at the bottom, or write a question in the chat. I'll start, Chanelle, with a kind of a big picture question, which is that what do you feel is with respect to youth behavioral health well-being in our community? What do you feel is currently missing, or we need more of? And what are the big gaps right now that we have room for improvement in with respect to, you know, trying to really address this whole issue of youth behavioral health a little better? And I realize this is your professional opinion or personal opinion, not necessarily the opinion of Santa Fe County.
Thank you for that. It's an interesting population. Today's generation has really been impacted by social media significantly. I'm seeing now this interesting trend over the last year and a half. It is kind of trendy to be involved in behavioral health in some component, whether that's anxiety or depression or ADHD, or it's kind of like a trendy, cool thing to be struggling, which is unique because we haven't really seen that generationally, I don't think, until recently, where I have kids coming in who have never, you know, gone to therapy before, or never, maybe like the family does seem to have some solid supports, but they're like, I'm depressed. I don't know what's going on. I'm depressed. And I don't know, it's an interesting thing, right? That requires a lot more intention and understanding and a little bit more of a deep dive. But there is some like a new kind of a newness to what we're seeing in terms of adolescent behavioral health, in my perspective, working with them day in and day out. But I would say that I always go back to the system that holds the youth, whether that be the parents, the schools, the community in general. Like, how attuned are we with their needs and with the rapid changing environment that they grew up in that we didn't, right? And like, I think that's really, really critical to understand, or else we miss a big portion of what their needs are. And so for me, it's really focusing on like what isn't working, or where is there a missing piece? And then how do we begin to build wraparound around those pieces to strengthen them, to then hopefully strengthen our youth, right? But it is an interesting, and I know some people may disagree with my statement about, you know, youth are really highly influenced by social media and they're absorbing a lot of content, but it is something I am seeing quite dramatically in terms of self-diagnosing. And, you know, the evidence for sometimes is like, okay, let's walk this through, and what does this look like, and trying to understand and comprehend where these definitions of what they're experiencing or feeling are. So it's an interesting time to work with adolescents. I am super intrigued by it and I love it. But there's a lot of influences that we didn't have 10 years ago when I first started this work. I don't know if that answers your question fully.
Well, it's probably really difficult to answer my question fully because it was a pretty broad, comprehensive, and a little bit overwhelming question, but no, that was very helpful. We have a question from Jonathan, Chanelle. He asks, are you screening in the schools, and how do you track recovery?
So we do have a close partnership with the schools. They do have contracts outside of the county that have clinicians within the schools. And so they are doing their screenings and assessments. As far as recovery, it is interesting, like through our team court program, we do track that in terms of when a client has self-defined themselves in recovery, what does that look like? What does that mean? Again, lots of curiosity around what that looks like for a 16-year-old versus a 13-year-old. Like, and sometimes it's a language thing and we have to really adjust that to ensure that we're understanding what that means. But I'm not sure how the schools are tracking recovery and what that looks like. I do know that they are providing assessments and screening tools.
Thank you. To kind of follow up on that question, are you aware of efforts thinking about now more young adults, behavioral health services and programs out of the Santa Fe Community College?
I am not. I haven't really dabbled in like the over 18 too much in my role here at the county. And that would be a good question for Alex. I know he's on right now. If he knows of any work being done there, but I'm not familiar with any work being done at the community college as far as young adults and mental health screenings.
Okay, thank you. Alex, are you aware of anything going on out at the community college? Alex also works for Santa Fe County Community Services Division in behavioral health world.
Thank you, Chanelle. Thank you, Craig, and good evening, NAMI Santa Fe. No, I too am not aware of anything that is occurring directly related to that over at SFCC. But it's actually a good point that really sparks more of an idea of why aren't we? We have spoken with them, but this was some time back. But I think that'll be something we definitely, or I definitely will follow up, especially with all our challenges that we have with our contractors regarding, of course, hiring qualified professional individuals that are in the behavioral health services. So thank you for bringing that up in that manner. I appreciate that.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else out in the audience have a question? Oh, Gary or Risha have their hand up, so feel free to ask your question.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for Chanelle for bringing us all of that very valuable information. We appreciate your time. I'm on the board for NAMI Santa Fe, and I know one of the things that we struggle with is getting the word out to people. I've been on the board now for 5 or 6 years, and I'm so surprised at how many people I talk to that aren't aware of our services or your services or any services that are available for family members and people suffering. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of marketing initiative or if there's something we can even do to work together to get the word out there for people that really need the help.
And did you say it was Risha?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And you're just unveiling the whole county plan here. We do have a small pot of money that we will be pouring into public awareness in terms of accessing behavioral health resources in a pretty detailed manner, including like insurance barriers and what you can access, what you can't. We do plan on doing some sort of public awareness piece that is part of our future planning and part of the future funding that we have allocated towards this. I agree. I think it's been interesting through our focus groups, I mentioned this earlier, to see how many people just jumped right away to like resources that were like far and wide, but didn't see any local resource. And that was a huge, I think, eye-opener for my director and I, because we do have resources. And it's just sometimes I don't think that they're out there enough or publicized enough or promoted. And when we go to all these different agencies, I've been in the field for over 10 years, I'm still learning about what people are offering. And I'm like, how did I not know this? So I can imagine just being, someone in the community seeking out services, how confusing that must be. And I also think that played a big role in our intensive case manager position, being able to have someone that held a lot of the resources and being able to connect those dots for people that are struggling to do that themselves.
Great. Thank you for that, Chanelle. I see a question in the chat from Jackie, and then we'll go to a question from Alex. So Jackie Doherty is a relatively recent retired from being the state suicide prevention coordinator. And Jackie asked, do you work with Native youth at the Santa Fe Indian School or children at the School for the Deaf?
Thank you, Jackie. And yes, Jackie and I worked together when she was at the state in some capacities. So it's so good to see you. So we don't work with the School for the Deaf, and I am super interested in having further conversations about how we could get into the School for the Deaf and what that would look like in terms of access and programming and services for that population. As far as Native youth, we do work closely with Powake School District, Tewa Roots, and we do have connections in the northern part of Santa Fe County. Also, historically, when we did do our grants, we did have applicants that focused on the Native population. However, no one responded to this last grant cycle in terms of that. That is a priority group for us, and that is like, we're always looking to build relationship there. So we've now worked with Taylor Roots and like, how do people access services? How can we become a referring agent to them? We're working with the Peak, who's also located and focused on, different Native specific types of programming. So we do have a feel for what's happening within that population, but we ourselves are not necessarily invested financially right now at this time.
Thank you. It's really impressive, everything you've done in a relatively short period of time. Good work.
Thanks.
Indeed. Alex, did you still have a comment or a question or no?
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted to share a little bit more to the question earlier that Chanelle was responded to in regards to the media campaign for adolescent services. Something that we added, that I added to this this current fiscal year to the New Mexico Solutions contract, who manages the crisis center, is that they go out in the community and they do a lot of training for the different agencies that may be referral agencies. It's everything from the appropriate type of clients that are, do fit into the crisis center services that they can receive there. And some of you may or may not know that the mobile crisis response team by New Mexico Solutions does respond and will treat those 14 years and older, but for those that are 18 and older, they're not able to take them to the crisis center. The crisis center itself is only for adults. So we're doing a lot of the education in the community through them in that manner. It's a very small step, but it's something that is happening on a quarterly basis throughout the community. And NAMI may be on one of on the radar for Kate to actually provide some of that training also. So if you haven't received that training, you may be receiving it, or you may be hearing from Kate in regards to that. So, and I also wanted to answer a little bit of what Jackie just asked. And hi, Jackie. It's good to see Jackie. I did some work with Jackie off and on trying to get that zero suicide program going at one time, pre-COVID. And the other thing in regards to Indian health services, I personally have been trying to recruit somebody to be part of what some of the board members and participants here today are familiar with, a behavioral health leadership team, and also Santa Fe Indian School. And I have not been successful in being able to recruit someone that was willing and had the time to represent. A lot of that work was taking place, again, not to use this as, I know we're all getting tired of hearing this, but it was during the COVID period, right at the beginning, because that was the first year of the behavioral health leadership team, was 2020. And so that's been a challenge, but it doesn't mean that we will not continue to, or I will not continue to reach out and try to get them involved, because it's very important that we get them involved, especially in our community here in Santa Fe, because they're a big player and they provide a lot of these services, and they have a lot of the same challenges that we're all talking about here today, whether it's adolescents or adults.
All right, thank you for that, Alex. I see a question in the chat from Jean Sandretto. Chanelle, Jean asks, how do kids reach Resolve in the Sky Center? Through schools or in some other way, or both?
So Resolve is done through the schools. They have ongoing timeframes in which they're able to go into the schools and provide their curriculum and interventions. Sky Center has multiple levels of referral, including self-referral. So a family can self-refer in. They could be referred from Christus or from another social service agency. But there's no barriers to accessing the Sky Center. There's no insurance. It's a no fee service. You literally just reach out and you get served. They are very, very adamant about having a no wait list. And so not turning families away is super important to them. And I've never in my years of experience with them have seen them turn a family away due to having a wait list. Huge resource. And then in regards to your question around Narcan, on our different public awareness pieces, there's a QR code. And we really customized it because Santa Fe County is so broad. We wanted people to be able to access Narcan in their community fairly easy or have Narcan brought to them. So there's a northern New Mexico contact on that QR code, a central New Mexico, which is Santa Fe, and then a Edgewood contact. And people literally can text and say, I need Narcan, where can I go or where can you meet me? And they literally will get Narcan via a text message, a phone call. They will come to them, or the individual can go to the service provider.
And let me just pipe in here and say, for those that might not be familiar with Narcan, Narcan is a nasal spray that can be used if someone is overdosing on an opiate, be it fentanyl or heroin or Oxycontin, and it can literally save their life. And it's very easy to administer. I actually keep some in my glove box just in case. And I remember when Santa Fe County Fire Department was actually handing out Narcan, but it sounds like you've made it even easier with that QR code to make it accessible. And then, as I understand it, the neat thing about Narcan is if the person is overdosing from something else, like meth or something else, Narcan's not going to do any harm.
That's great.
And so it's sort of a risk-free way to literally save someone's life if they're overdosing from an opiate.
Or if a kiddo gets it, or something were to happen and it gets in the hands of someone that shouldn't have it, it's not dangerous or lethal.
Great. Anybody else out in the audience have a question? I know Jessica has one that she's dying to ask, so we'll go ahead and call on Jessica.
Okay, I was really impressed with when you talked about putting someone at Christus St. Vincent in their ER department, because we just became aware of the problems they're having there, the crisis of being overwhelmed. So I was just it seems like you responded really fast to that need. So I was just curious how that came about. How did you guys get connected and how did you respond so fast?
Yeah, so we had various stakeholder meetings with the hospitals at the table, and different community agencies such as the schools, the city. We had different providers like the Sky Center, Gerard's House, Mountain Center. We just had a lot of people come into a room and talk about like what isn't being met. And it kept coming up that kids are going and being seen, but nothing's happening. So like they're returning to school and the schools are like, well, what are they receiving or what's going on? And so it just became really apparent. And then when I started doing a national research dive and I started seeing like this trend happening across the United States and our hospitals not being equipped to handle behavioral health, specifically with adolescents, they're struggling with adults, but even more so with adolescents, it just really highlighted a way that maybe we could partner. And thankfully, Christus was like on board to say like, yeah, let's try it. So I'm so excited. I'm just like, I need a person to fill it. That's another hard part being in the behavioral health world is the workforce issues. So we've tried to really look at how we are trying to bring in people and like limiting the barriers. So like I mentioned, it could be a social worker that's working towards independent licensing and trying to get hours and will receive supervision just to try and entice, and make that position even more exciting potentially for someone to engage in.
That's great. Thank
And
you,
as
Chanelle.
we do, like I'm happy to report back results at some point once we do get it filled and talk about how that looks.
That would be great.
Thank you. Chanelle, I have a question about parents' role and involvement in their child's journey, if you will, when they're dealing with a behavioral health issue, be it substance use disorder, substance abuse, or a mental health challenge. Do you find the parents receptive to having their child undergo therapy and medication and things like that, or do you find them inherently resistant, or is it kind of a mixed bag, and how do you deal with that?
I would say it's a mixed bag. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we've created such a broad restorative justice programming through the county. And it's for that very reason exactly, is there's so much resistance when the word therapy or counseling or therapeutic services came up. Parents are like, nope, done it. 10 different providers never worked for me, won't work for my kid. It was just like automatic shutdown. For some parents, not all. But it was really like a missed opportunity to actually engage the families. So we really looked at how can we, through a non-clinical type of program, but with a skilled facilitator, open up the possibility. So I mentioned earlier our Breaking Barriers program. It's facilitated by Mary Louise Romero, a huge restorative justice practitioner in Santa Fe County. And I would open it up to anyone on your member or your board. If they want to see this program in action, I'd be happy for them to observe or participate in it. But essentially, we talked about these challenges of like, hey, we're missing so many kids that really need, and families that really need in-depth support. Like, what can we do, and how can we create this program to like start opening a little bit of opportunity? And through that program, it's been game changer for us. Parents at the end, they do an evaluation, and one of our specific questions is, after this experience, would you be willing or ready to look into a therapeutic, therapy, family counseling, individual counseling? And we've seen so many people saying like, after this, I'll give it a chance. So it's really allowed like an opening and a step. It's a 3-session program. The first one is the kid alone. The second one is the parent alone. And the third one is a coming together of both. And it's done in a group setting with other appropriate parents and youth involved. And so for us, that's been a game changer for those parents that are a little bit resistant to therapy. And they're like, I'm not doing that. Like, we've been able to see how restorative justice has been able to fill that and support and encourage maybe even the next step in that journey. And yes, for some, but not all.
That was actually that was actually referring to, Jonathan had asked me if we have brochures on all of these programs, and I know we have some on some, but not all. So I meant to say that to him. But
I was gonna say, with any program
more
I
brochures.
say, it's never a one size fits all. Everything is unique and customized to people because we're all unique and we all have our own needs that need to be met.
Great. Thank you, Chanelle. We're just about out of time. Does anyone have a last minute burning question they'd like to ask Chanelle? Seeing none, I'd just like to say on behalf of the NAMI Santa Fe board, thank you so much, Chanelle, for presenting to us tonight. And the citizens of Santa Fe County, in my opinion, are blessed to have you in the position that you're performing for all of us and for our community's youth. So we're very appreciative.